or maybe to refill those. And just a little bit of a sense of the flow of the morning, or the morning and lunchtime. So shortly I'll be handing over to colleagues to formally open and to really sort of set the scene for what we're discussing today. Then we're going to hear from some experts and those that are really living this theme, our bio-based solutions in practice in real time, and hear some of their stories of how their enterprises and their work has gone. We'll have a short break just to sort of stretch or get more coffee and tea. And then also, really the purpose of today is two forms of idea sharing. One is for us, or for you, I hope, to get ideas and inspiration from our colleagues who've been kind enough to share their stories. And the other is for us all to discuss together and hear what's coming up for you, and that to come back to the department and really to have an exchange of ideas today. So yeah, just opening a warm welcome to all of that happening. So I think that's everything on the practical level. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Gareth Maitland, Principal Officer in our Rural Strategy Unit. And Gareth, if you would help us formally begin.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you all for being here this morning. Ali's done a little bit of the background to the Rural Ideas Forum events, but just to say that they were a commitment under. They were a commitment under. Sorry, the Rural Ideas Forum were a commitment that was put into our rural future. They were really designed to, I suppose, allow us to explore some of the emerging themes that were contained in the policy, but also.
I think you should put your mouth right towards that.
No.
Okay. So they can help us.
I might just.
Let's do it without.
Yeah, let's just go without.
Forget the mic.
Yeah, to allow us to explore some of the themes that were emerging under our future, both some of the, I suppose, newer elements that were contained in the policy, but also some of the core elements. So we've been fortunate to have discussions on things like social enterprise, town centre first, rural transport, and a whole range of other topics. And we're delighted to be able to be discussing the bioeconomy today. We talk a lot about in our future, and as we've been delivering the policy around changing narratives around rural areas, particularly in seeing opportunities and potential of rural areas, rather than seeing rural areas as areas that are inherently challenged or inherently needing of support, when in reality the potential is what we should be focusing on. Rural people are inherently innovative, often because down the generations we've had to be. And the bioeconomy is one area where innovative solutions are being brought forward all the time, and that's part of what we want to get into today. It's an emerging sector, and you'll hear more from Department of Environment and Communications on what we've done at government level. We have some practitioners and academic experts you'll hear from, and then most importantly, as Ali said, we're looking forward to hearing from you. On a final note, I do want to thank the Department of Environment and Communications for kindly partnering with us on this event, and we hope that the discussion is fruitful, and that both us as officials and yourselves as people who are in the bioeconomy sector are able to take a lot from today. So with that, I'll hand back.
Thank you. Thank you, Gareth. So if anyone has a problem with hearing, maybe just let Melissa know, and we'll try and fix the mics. At the moment, can you hear okay if we just use natural voice? Yeah, it's a nice small room. So, to set the scene for the theme today, we do have Laura Broomfield with us from the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications, Assistant Principal Officer in Land Use and Sectoral Policy. So, Laura, please open up the theme for us and set the tone for today. And do you want this?
Yeah, I might stand up here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure how I can.
Yeah, oh no, just stand up there. Yeah.
Hello everyone, and I'd like to start by thanking all of you for being here, and to also thank DRCD for incorporating bioeconomy in this Rural Ideas Forum. So, This is part of Bioeconomy Ireland Week, which is an entire week given towards raising awareness and providing support to bioeconomy around Ireland. It runs from, started yesterday with a launch event and it's run until Friday.
I'll check.
So, what is the bioeconomy? In short, or in words, it's all sectors of associated services and investments that relate to the generation, the regeneration, the process, distribution, and consumption of biological resources. It's basically an economy based on your biological resources. And because of that, and because we live on a finite planet, there are certain principles that are incorporated into the whole policy area of bioeconomy. Bit of a nicer picture. What the bioeconomy entails then is natural biological resources. It could include processes such as biorefineries, the production of bio-based packaging. You might see your bio-based the compostable bags, for instance, for bio-waste, the collection of bio-waste, sludge and sludge waters, etc. And then the use of those resources and the investment and support for those resources. If anyone is unclear or you want to hear more, there are some copies of the Bioeconomy Action Plan for Ireland out on the desk outside, along with a recently published book, or was recently translated into English, on what is the circular bioeconomy, which has some Irish input into it as well. So the developments then in Ireland, it started around 2018 with a national statement on bioeconomy policy. This established a bioeconomy development group, which is a cross-departmental and interagency group, and an Irish Bioeconomy Forum. And the forum consists of stakeholders from across civil society, so from academia, from industry, primary producers, etc. The work of the Bioeconomy Forum and the development group came together over the years to produce, to feed into the Bioeconomy Action Plan for 2023 to 2025, which was published in October last year. And we're now in the implementation phase. This action plan then re-established the Bioeconomy Development Group, but it became the Bioeconomy Implementation and Development Group. We have 12 or 13 departments and a similar number of agencies, including the EPA, SEAI, CHADIS, all part of that implementation and development group. And we also relaunched the Bioeconomy Forum. So we wanted to cast as broad a net as possible. We did a public expression of interest earlier in the year. And our forum has now grown from about 30 people to just over 50, plus an additional 19 academics who are on an advisory group. So we have about 70 people who are part of the Irish Bioeconomy Forum. So this is the action plan itself. It covers 72 steps across 33 actions. And our core pillars cover governance and awareness, so about raising awareness of what is the bioeconomy, and some actions under that include the development of some videos on different actors within the bioeconomy to explain what it is. So they should be launching fairly soon on YouTube. We have research, development and innovation, nature, climate, energy and circular economy. So for example, the use of natural capital accounting and the application of that in terms of the bioeconomy, agriculture, food, forestry and marine, industry and enterprise, knowledge and skills, and most importantly for yourselves, the communities, regions and cities. And this was because there's an acknowledgement and an understanding that the approach to bioeconomy is going to differ according to where you are. So if you're in an urban area, your bio resources that are available to you could be, for instance, cuttings from trees, from parklands, etc. Whereas your bio resources available to you on a rural level are going to be a bit different. So because we live on a finite planet and we have a finite number of resources, there are guiding principles around the bioeconomy from this policy perspective. Number one being sustainable. So we don't want to create an issue for the future. So we want to be able to use our biological resources in a sustainable way. And not just we don't want to create any environmental issues, but we also want it to be socially sustainable as well. And the bioeconomy does form an element of the just transition. And just recently, the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine, and along with the Department of the Environment, Climate Communications, recently announced funding for 2 different projects under the Just Transition Fund that would support, I think it's around the Midlands area in Lochfield, Tipperary. We have the cascading principle. So this is the idea that you should be trying to get the highest possible value out of your biological resources before it goes down to, for instance, energy might be towards the bottom if there's if there are higher value, for example, in pharma, etc., that you may be able to get. This is linked to the Food First policy as well. So the bioeconomy policy acknowledges the need for food security. We take the precautionary approach, and we apply the precautionary principle to seek to do no harm. And in the 2023 action plan, we also incorporated the area-based local and regional development. That goes to what I was mentioning earlier about the fact that it needs to have a different approach according to where we are. So, bioeconomy in rural Ireland. From a policy perspective, under Pillar 5, we have 3 key actions, which are all designed around advancing the bioeconomy and bioeconomy development in rural areas. So to include is governance in cities and regional plans, and there we see regional authorities such as EMRA and the Southern Regional Assembly in Basin Waterford, who are moving ahead with incorporated bioeconomy to their governance levels. And there's a step there on creating a needs-driven regional and local development linked to regional skills. Some work ongoing on there. And then DAFM also are working on the last, which is how to ensure that there's funding there as well. And we have, as well as the Just Transition Fund, we also support the bioeconomy through the Shared Island Fund, which was it's an initiative under the Department of Taoiseach. And the Shared Island Fund is, I think it's about 7 million from the Shared Island Fund combined with 1.5 from DAFM and just over $1 million from DARA, who is the Department of Agriculture for Northern Ireland. And they're currently evaluating applications to this fund. So this was designed to support the bioeconomy, land bioeconomy in Ireland and loon bioeconomy as well, but supporting all Ireland's approach to bioeconomy. Where today sits, we had it as one of our actions, and thanks again to DRCD, and to host a Rural Ideas Forum on the bioeconomy. So it's really designed to help to boost awareness. We're holding it this week during Bioeconomy Week, which, as I mentioned earlier, started yesterday. It goes on for a full week, and then we have some events on either side. You can see more at irishbioeconomy.ucd.ie, or if you just search for Irish Bioeconomy Week. And there are a whole range of different events going on. So there's the Bioeconomy at your local library, the International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy are organising something for youth. They have youth ambassadors for bioeconomy. I think Ireland has one actually. And there's also the decarbonising opportunities, which is run by Climate Kick for the climate advisory officers. And that looks at the role of bioeconomy in decarbonising. So it's the role of bioeconomy in climate action. So basically that's, I hope, a very, very quick whistle-stop tour through bioeconomy policy, and I'll now hand back over. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you. Great. So I'm already starting to learn more about what bioeconomy is, and actually that was one of the things I wanted to check as we go into this conversation, because I think a big objective for Laura, as she said, was really we're at a stage of trying to raise understanding and awareness for people that work in the area. Obviously it's more familiar, but I just thought to check amongst us here, if you would say that your level of familiarity with like bioeconomy, what that is very high. Would you raise a hand? Yes, Bernard, brilliant. Great, some of our speakers, that's wonderful. And if you'd say currently your level of familiarity with bioeconomy is pretty low, raise a hand. Yeah, so I'm just going in that as well. Yeah, so just I think that really shows, Laura, just as you were saying, that this is the stage we're at. I mean, one other thing I was thinking, if a bioeconomy-based solution is part of or connected to your work in particular, could you raise a hand? Yeah. Okay, yeah, so obviously that's why we're here. There is a connection, but there's still a lot that we would like to develop, and including with colleagues and community and society. Okay, so we're going to move into the next part. Hopefully this will help us with building that understanding and awareness and familiarity. So I would like to introduce our colleagues who are going to share some of their work. And I thought I might just introduce each person one by one and then come up then, and that's the way to do it. So we'll have this part of the conversation up here. So now, Lena, I saw you up here already, so chance to introduce you. Yes, in exactly the right seat. So Dr. Lena Madden, who is the Senior Research Fellow and Principal Investigator from the Technical University of Shannon, you're very nearby. And I know your field is really bio-nanomaterial science. And I just thought when I introduce our colleagues will speak more about what they do, but just to sort of draw out one thing, I know that one of the things you created was the Ireland Soil Health Living Lab.
Were you in the process?
You're in the process. Okay, I think that's a beautiful title. It sounds very evocative. Okay, so we'll hear more about what Lena does and your work, but just really warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
And then. And maybe just can you still hear okay when we're sitting up here?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. So next then, I'd like to introduce Bernard Carey. Bernard from Forum9 Westmeath. Bernard, you really seem to be a long-standing innovator in every area. Starting with a nursery, you used the iTree software, you started planting rock forest plantation, which sounds so evocative, and I know that your most recent work is around biochar, which is one of the things you were telling us about, so we'll hear more about that today. So just welcome, Bernard. Yeah. And then Patrick Daly is a colleague in the architecture field. Some of you might know. It's really nice to meet you, Patrick. Lecturer researcher in the School of Architecture in TU Dublin, another one of our technical universities. And so your field is like energy efficient design in terms of buildings. And again, another thing to draw out of all the many things Patrick's done is that you designed and built Ireland's first zero net energy house. Yes. Yeah. So another amazing sounding project, and many other things as well. But we'll just take that one as one little shiny example. And then finally, Kevin Dooley. So great to meet you, Kevin. Kevin is managing director of Dooley's Wool, which we'll be hearing more about, which is at the foot of the Shrieblin Mountains near Rossgreen. And really, I guess you can hear in the story of your business this change from, with obviously wool has been one of the trades and the produce of this country for many, many years, but how to really diversify that as times are changing and moving it into new areas. So I actually won't give away any more, but you'll maybe tell us about that and what you've done. So maybe just a really warm welcome to all four of our... So I think maybe just as a starting question, and each time I just ask the same question, we can just go around, would be, could you just say something briefly about your main work and how it connects to bioeconomy-based solutions that we're starting to learn about today, maybe starting with you, Lena?
As my main work, I'm a researcher at the demonstration level and specifically in the area of circular bioeconomy. So the expertise would be assess resources of by industry or farming, etc., and see where the inputs, outputs, how we can connect everything, make it circular. And at the moment, we're going to include myself, I'm coordinating a very large data project called Circle. If you want to talk about it later, this time's out there. For the meat processors to utilize everything, clean water, reduce bioenergy, biochar, everything, fertilizer back to earth. And then my recent project that just started is very exciting development in the area of living labs. It's not what people most familiar like living lab is, a farm that does some experimentation. We're gonna attempt to create a socially connected system that will work together for the betterment of both society and environment and pocket of the farmers and rural communities. So that's exact a very exciting thing that I looking forward to develop in the Midwest region.
Yeah.
But
Wonderful, I love that. The living lab. In a way, you can think of many things that could be
yes.
worked on as a living lab in that way.
So the new concept introduced by EU as a living lab, it's not just a farm that does experimentation. It's the communities, it's farmers that come together, share knowledge, share resources, share fun, and lots of different things. And currently we're located between County Clare, Limerick, and Tipperary. It's the first this living lab funded under Mission Soil in Europe. And I hope that my colleagues from different universities could get funding for different locations in Ireland, or we could expand, but it's going to be a structure that exists after the project is over. Okay, and it's going to hopefully will be self-sustained and work for the rural communities and for the betterment of the people living in rural areas.
Wonderful. Here's to many living labs. Fantastic. Okay, so Bernard, how about you? How does your work really fit with this being a bioeconomy-based solution?
Well, I suppose I come from a farm, and back to the wrong side of 50. There's good things and bad things about that, but I grew up in a farm, and as far as I'm concerned, this new term bioeconomy, we didn't have a term. We had bioeconomy. And particularly the farm I grew up with, it's outside Quebec, and my father, we had to touch college. Thankfully, it's still there. We don't own that farm anymore. But the straw, he used to maintain the roof up to about 15 years ago, so when he died. And we cut the straw on the roads every year and had to down the reaper binder because you don't want to come by and wreck the straw. So we touched it. So we had that material for that roof coming from the farm, so it's up with. But going forward then, I'm a forester, I've done horticulture. In fact, I went to college down here at the road for a few years, and the RTC as it was then. I then went into forestry and went down to Clare. I'm in Clare's 25 years now. One of the first things I noticed was about the rushes, and people were saying, oh, if we could do something with these rushes, we'd be all rich. And I got into other things. I was doing firewood and so on. And then I began to realise there was a shortage of biomass. Like, biomass is a limited resource, and there's a lot of spruce planted, and that's got lots of uses. Like, there's, every bit of a spruce tree is used. The logs, obviously, the smaller bits are brought out, so there's a use for that. And I started looking at the rushes and what could you do with them. So in that step, then I got a small bit of funding to do some research in the University of Limerick, an innovation grant, which anybody might be out here thinking they're very freely available for companies. They're easily got, and you can just go, you can pick somebody and they'll do the research for you, and you can get the right university to do it. It's a voucher you sort of get. So I think it's gone up to 10,000. When I got it was 5, and we got good results from using the rushes in pot trials. And that then was a spur then for a few years later when the EIP thing came out too. I knew about it a year before and I was waiting for it. So as soon as it came out, it was like, right, EIP is European Innovation Partnership Fund, which are still there but in different formats. And there was a lot of us out there that got those. And a lot of us are now feeding into the current acre schemes and the agri-environmental schemes. The results of those, the outputs from there have been integrated into them. But then it was like, what do you do with the rushes? What can you do? The other thing was biochar for me, because I've done these trials. And I knew a lot about it in 10 years ad, so it wasn't a big step to go. I had to try to get the machine built and to go to farmers and the whole infrastructure about how to gather up the rushes. But another concept then was, we mentioned in our talk last week when we had a chat, was this idea I have of what I call a bioeconomy ecosystem services. That is, you got your bioeconomy, everybody sort of kind of knows what that is, to know the ecosystem services, but you might know how the two relate to one another. one of the things we got, we done in that project was, it was one farmer, we're in the hen harrier SPA, and the hen harriers under serious threat in Slieve Rockies in Outer Ireland, was to cut strips in the field. That was part of one of the schemes. But the farmers were either cutting the rushes and just leaving them to rot, or maybe there was some of them harvest them or push them into ditches and so on. But we were able to harvest the rushes from that field, turn them into biochar, and then that biochar can be added back to the slurry in the slurry tank in the slatted shed, and it helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions in it, and helps the animals, reduces ammonia. These are things that can be all proved, you know. There's research done, not enough, but there's enough there to show that these things are possibilities. And then it's applied to the land, you're locking up the carbon. So you get this sort of this cascade effect, which was mentioned in the presentation there. You get the ecosystems, because now you're helping the habitat, because by managing that habitat for them harriers, it's a perfect breeding ground for the mice, or the rodents mainly, that and other birds that they feed on in those habitats. So,
Wow.
It was that idea, and then the products which you can see outside, some of them were like pelletized and so on. So you can create this whole rural economy with your resources you have. I'm a forester at the moment. In forestry, there's very little land to be planted, and there's going to be less planted than there would have been heretofore, because we now have restrictions on breeding weight areas, peat, but the rushes are going to still grow, and they're going to be there. And the other unique thing about rushes, and thankfully where I grew up we had no rushes, so I went to a part of the country that was full of rushes. They're perennial, they keep growing. If you don't harvest them this year, you get them next year. They require no resources to plant them. You don't virtually no fertilizer, and farmers are putting a huge amount of input. And that's the other thing too. The other input they're putting in is probably chemicals. So by creating this ecosystem around them, you can actually manage for habitat, resources. Like just on the biochar, it's not just biochar you're producing heat also. So it's a heat. It can also, there's a whole lot of gasification, produce electricity, bio-oils. There's a whole series of products that we produce, and you'll see some of them outside that can be produced from rushes.
Okay, so Bernard, thanks so much. I mean, just really sort of opening this, I'm just going back to the very first thing you said, that in the past, we didn't have a term for bioeconomy. It was the bioeconomy. That was the history of our farming and the way you've transmitted it. And then I'm hearing you describe that circular nature of the bioeconomy, and then the way you've joined bioeconomy with ecosystem services. So not only have we got the rushes-based biochar, but actually you're supporting the habitat for the hen harrier.
Because I think that's very important, because I also grew up at a time when there was no grants. We'd live by our wits, and even in its current situation, I live by wits. I grow plants and I'm sometimes left with them, and you're trying to figure out, we need to link them to things. Because the problem with relying on any of these schemes is they're all for 5 years, so farmers don't know what's going out. So we need to create a system where farmers will get paid for these ecosystems, and that's the first steps in that are happening. But you have to sort of identify what can benefit the communities, the farmers, and the habitats. And the example of the hen harrier is a good one, where you cut the rush, manage those rushes, and the energy benefits, and the farmer and the environment, everybody benefits.
I'm just seeing a connection with Lena's project, the Living Lab, that's not even just farms, it's a community as well. And then your work, there's a farm that is actually, it's community, it's the animals, the more than human beings, everyone's going to benefit. So we'll keep going and hear some other examples, and then I've got a few other questions as well. So Patrick, same for you. How does your work connect to our theme today, to the bioeconomy-based solutions?
Well, a very strong link to what he was saying is that there's a huge amount of bioresources outside of the forestry sector, and Rush is one of them. So I developed an interest years ago in hemp, and did some research for the EPA on whether hemp was a potential construction material in Ireland. But more recently, we're focusing on broadening that out to under a project called Circular Renovation. So we're looking to promote and develop the use of agri-crops in construction as construction materials that are providing an insulation, or maybe providing a structural racking board or some strength contribution. They may be providing thermal mass and moisture buffering. They have all these properties, but of course the huge advantage is that they are renewable, sustainable, and you're locking in carbon in the construction. So as part of that study, we've done a state of play of what's happening in Europe, and it's been really interesting to see. We've talked to over 57 companies in Europe that are manufacturing construction products from straw, hemp and miscanthus at different levels. And we're now seeing, I'm going to visit in Malmo, a 14-story apartment block that's a timber frame structure, but it's insulated with straw, and completely fire retardant. And it'll be a negative carbon negative building. So you'll have, in the same way you're taking rush and making biochar and putting it in the soil and you're locking carbon in, we can lock carbon into buildings. So there's a really important synergy between agriculture, manufacturing and construction. And of course within that, the potential for carbon trading is also there. So it would be possible if there were a national or a European carbon trading system, that farmers would get value from raw materials that get locked into buildings for 60, 70 years. And when that's accounted for, there's a financial benefit there because that carbon can be sold on markets. So it's quite an interesting synergy. But we're at the moment, we're doing workshops around the country with key stakeholders to try and map out what these supply chains would look like. How to get these started. We're looking at how they started in Europe. How, let's say, a straw-based supply chain started in the Netherlands, and can we copy that model, or how the hemp sector developed in northern France into construction, and what can be learned from that model. So basically that's the concept of the project, and the research is to demonstrate technical solutions and also to work with regional stakeholders to develop supply chains. And we would see key agencies, rural development agencies, as being really essential in that, to let people know and let the farming community know, and also investors and industrialists know that there are opportunities to manufacture bio-based construction materials with all sorts of environmental and rural development, job creation potential yield.
That's brilliant, Patrick. Thanks so much for bringing that to life. I really get it from what you're sharing. And I see this common point here from Patrick and Bernard around that what the farmers can offer and the benefit to our environment, in fact, the ecosystem service of that should be paid for. That like, I think you were saying that as well, that would be a line of business for the farmer. And then the other thing I was thinking of, that we're not only using rushes to help our habitats for our bird friends, but actually for our humans, for our own citizens. We need more buildings, we need more homes and housing, and this could be a way to do it in a caring way. Just a question, looking at those examples in Sweden and the Netherlands and your research project, like in our country right now, is this being done at all other than, by private? I met a friend who's into hemp, it's hempcrete.
On a very, very niche and small scale. And yet, we have over 250,000 hectares of straw. It's a massive resource. It's underutilized. 1% of that could go into construction to make a huge difference and start the whole industry.
And that straw simply not being used?
It's being used in animal bedding. Some of it is being put back into the soil. But it's a huge resource. There's a huge volume of it. And like we're seeing in Europe, there are modular manufacturers making prefabricated homes where they're injecting straw chips as the insulation, condensing it. So it's a resource. It's there. It's not rocket science to get it into construction. It just needs investment and innovators and regional support. But these would establish regional businesses. Like I've just come back from a factory in Poland. It's quite interesting. An architect developed a small factory. They're using over 1,000 tons of straw that is going into it. They're supplying insulated boards, insulated bats, and quilt insulation from straw. And that's based in a small village about the size of Quebec. And it's that sort of 1 hour from Warsaw. But there's a small rural community, just like 20-30 people employed there, and the straw has all been bought locally. All that's staying in that local economy. Then in Slovakia, I visited a modular manufacturer who are making wall panels using injected bio-based material, and they're looking to establish 25 factories across Europe regionally under license. And they're all employing local people, and all their factories work in a 20-kilometer radius of contracting miscanthus or straw to supply. So we're seeing the possible development of these regional supply chains that could really be rural-based economies and industries. So I think that's really exciting for the rural sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, there's so much potential, isn't there? I know
Huge.
there's a number, we'll get maybe to the obstacles, there's things to get through to
Yes,
get there,
of course.
but the potential is just so obvious.
Yes.
Thank you, Patrick. So, Kevin, moving on to you, so the same thing, just how would you connect what you're doing and Dooley's will and with what we're talking about today with the
Do you mind if I just hand this
Yes,
for the
come on,
people to
let's
hand
see the
out?
will. Thank you.
And it's just the words.
So, have a feel.
No sleeping.
There's not one for everybody, to be honest. Yeah, so look, my father started the business about 70 years ago. He was a wool merchant, so his job was when the farmers sheared the sheep, he went and he purchased the wool and we graded it in our depot just outside Roscrea and we exported it to predominantly was for the carpet trade. So everything was going okay, there was a few up and down years. So 2020 struck, COVID struck, everybody was shearing the sheep, all the wool kept on coming in, and basically what happened, all the hotels in the world shut down, cruise ships shut down, and the wool kept on stockpiling, so we had all this wool and we couldn't sell. As a company we were probably under pressure, you know what I mean, we had a product that nobody wanted, so I knew, in 2015 I got married, and I got a wedding present of a wool mattress, I got a wedding present of wool pillows and wool duvets. So we knew how good wool was as an insulator. So I, through help through the Offaly Leader Development Programme, both John and Aileen are here today, we came with the idea to them. They said they'd fully support it. So what we said we would do is we get Irish farmers wool and we would get it washed and we would put it into pillows and duvets and mattress toppers. So basically 30 years ago, there's probably a lot of people in the room today that can relate to this. The majority of the blankets in Ireland 30 years ago were wool blankets. And then what happened was synthetics were introduced into Ireland, and then synthetics completely diminished the wool trade because it was a cheaper alternative. But as everybody knows here, that a synthetic is derived from oil, plastics, and the long-lasting effects that synthetics have. So we decided, like we knew, like wool is naturally hyperallergenic, it's temperature regulating, it's biodegradable, wool is also a carbon secretor. So the benefits of wool cannot be replicated by a synthetic, if you know what I mean. The farmers in Ireland are already producing it, you know what I mean, because they're already producing the lamb for the meat trade. So we said, we put it out there, we got it wool washed, we got it manufactured. So about 2 years ago, we went online with our products. So we've started now, let's say doolieswool.ie. And then just recently, we've gone to a couple of retailers, and recently our pillows are now for sale in Hardy Norland. So like, basically what we're doing is we're bringing the wool from Irish farmers to the retailer as a direct replacement for synthetic.
Wow, brilliant. Just a little follow up on that, and then we can continue. How are people? Well, maybe first thing, who remembers growing up with wool blankets? Did anyone have that? Yes. Yeah. But wool in a pillow or a duvet, I haven't experienced that before. How is it like? I mean, here we're trying to raise awareness and learn things, but how are people responding to that, or how do you? Is there a bit of a story to tell that this is actually going to be a really nice thing for you to have in your home? Or?
Well, wool is naturally, wool absorbs your moisture naturally. So if you're sweating at night time, wool will actually absorb the moisture and help you sleep better. Okay. It won't cure you, but it will definitely help you sleep better. We find with a lot of, look, there's a lot of people here that sweat at night time. There's people going through different stages of life. We've sold a lot of, let's say, duvets that way. The pillows are the same. Wool is also flame retardant. It's like the people with allergies, they will turn to wool as opposed to synthetic or duck. You know what I mean? But the problem we probably find at the moment is, you can buy a pillow, let's say, in a shop in Athlone maybe for a £5, while the cost of maybe getting that, we can't compete on price, but synthetic cannot replicate what wool can do, because it's a natural fibre, let's say, being grown on the sheep. So maybe where we can compete, and look, we've gone a couple of weeks ago, we actually went to Dublin to to give our case to the government maybe of reducing the VAT or getting rid of the VAT on a natural wool product. And the beauty about wool as well is if you're finished with your pillow, there's no microplastics. If you leave that pillow out in the field, your duvets out in the field, that'll biodegrade naturally into your soil. And along with biodegrading, wool also carries nutrients as well like that will go back towards the soil as well.
Yes, yeah, wonderful. And so, I mean, really, it's like our sheep friends, they knew it best, you know. It's like the wool is far better than anything that we could actually create, and so good that we're able to reconnect it. Okay, so just to say that one of the ways that we tend to be looking at things in the Rural Ideas Forum is, okay, so there's this huge potential, and you know, you could say, why is it not happening? But obviously there are both things that would support the development of these projects, that you said you've already been going to the government to look at things that would make this work better, and things that are obstacles. So I just want to ask colleagues here that 2 questions. We'll start with the first one. So the first one is, what would actually really make each of your projects really fly? What either has been an enabler, something that's made it work, or what would be, in your ideal world, what would really make it work? I'm going to come back to Lena. So do you get my question? Like,
yeah, absolutely. So I was listening to each of the speakers, and to be honest, to absolutely amazing initiatives, and you know, that's a real example how things could work together. But what we could do, we could put them actually all to work together in this circular way. I'm a circular bioeconomy scientist, so I'm assessing every single step of them, every single part of the process. Okay, and is it all the good, bad, and ugly, and beautiful in every process? So biochar is a big thing there, very big thing. We're looking at biochar a big way in every circular process. Any biomass that has a fibrous material would definitely go to biochar and could be returned into the soil. The same hemp, I work a lot with the hemp cooperative and many hemp farmers. If utilized correctly, it could be a construction material. Hemp char is the best for the soil. Wool is amazing, okay, and it's very big shame the way we treat wool these days. I'm very familiar with the topic. There's a project going on at the moment in trying to reutilize the wool, but it's looking at the cheap ways of doing it, you know, because washing wool, it's crazy expensive, a lot of water going into there. Can't we use that water for something else? Could we do something else that, because we all wear plastics, and we have resource here in Ireland that seated in the every sheep farmer shed in the corner and rots because nobody wants to take it. It's so expensive to wash and to develop it into. When I found out about it first time, it was mind blowing because it's such a resource. But I think that for me, we're getting centralized with building big demonstration projects. It's great from one perspective, okay? We're building demonstrations, we're looking for investment, but we need to invest in the small businesses, in the cooperatives, in the local social groups that would probably have resources for the neighboring farmers. Okay, so something like pyrolysis reactor for a community.
Say that again.
A pyrolytic reactor, the reaction that makes
biochar.
Sorry,
my ignorance here.
For a community. So when we have our rushes or our hemp stalks from different farms, we could bring together and make a biochar, and it's very expensive these days. And then farmers would get benefit and reutilize it. We're building a big anaerobic digestion plant, so I want to sponsor farmers to go in a small scale at each farm. It's not going to make as much profit as the big one, but it will support the farmer, it will support the environment, the ecosystem, etc. So my personal answer, try to sponsor a small little farming businesses cooperatives and small communities that will spread this amount, this money within the community and help the community to thrive.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lena. And that, I think that really connects that when Patrick was speaking about, look what they're doing in Poland, we could have rural, regional businesses all over the country. And I was just sort of trying to imagine that. And I think you're pointing to the same thing. If we could invest in the rural, regional areas.
Yeah, in
that,
yeah. To maybe not 100% sponsor anaerobic digester for each farmer, but produce something like one-stop shop that we do for building at the moment. So it would incentivize the farmer to have a mini anaerobic digester instead of the slurry pit, and have benefit of it that way. But then connect everything again circular. It needs to collect the digestate, and the way of treating that was separated, sent half of it to paralytic reactor, the other half to make fertilizer out of it. So it's do not look at one single solution that can solve all problems, okay? Because bioeconomy is a very complex system. It's very, very complex. That it's the human is complex system with all our organs, and we have to feed and do our hair and clothe ourselves and warm. Each organ does its own work. The same as bioeconomy. Each bioeconomy process is very complex and very complicated, and solutions for these processes is also they're also complex.
And they can be multiple.
And they are multiple.
They are.
It's never one thing that can solve the problem.
Okay.
So that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Lena. And just because that was one thing I was getting from the first part, where you're saying that it sounds to me like you see every material in a circle, which is in the way as colleagues have been speaking as well. But every material we have, everything that's part of our world here, should be seen in a completely circular way. And then you're saying that the processes we need also have multiple solutions. There shouldn't be just one 101, and that's not what nature is like. Okay, so
it would suit this particular area, this particular business. So the solutions could be multiple, but the one that chosen,
okay,
or the collection of solutions that chosen could be tailored for every specific area, farm, small business, etc.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so then moving on to you, Bernard. Just thinking, so with, any of your projects, but maybe the latest one, what has been or would be the most powerful kind of enabler of this really flying, of the whole thing sort of flourishing, either what's happened already or going further?
Well, like I was always said, we need to join up thinking, and we don't do it very well in Ireland. That's what I think. Anyway, you got one person doing their thing, one department, so the after the thought. We had a very good example of that many years ago, where we had willows and miscatus planted. Farmers went out and planted, but there wasn't the other end for boilers and that, and renewable heat energy incentives and so on. So you ended up with crops, and miscatus was dug up. Miscatus, by the way, is elephant grass. It grows extremely tall, and it's a very good fuel. And willow. So in the current with the biochar, it would have to be carbon credits, and that's not there. We actually have, believe it or not, we've got one of the biggest plants in Europe here in Ireland for liquid biochar. It's up in Arigna. It brought in the commission it there in recent months. So ironically, we have this technology here now, and there's smaller plants around Ireland, and there's more coming up. So that's the technology isn't problem. For a lot of people say the technology isn't there. What I was at is interesting what Patrick said about Poland, because that was my concept. Because I think it's more than it's forward to the past as opposed to back to the future. It's to look at we're going back a bit now to see how things work on. Funny, most of us have the ability at the moment to generate electricity for the first time ever in the last few decades with solar panels. But we had before, you had your firewood, your meal, your corn was processed locally, your food. So that was my sort of idea, was this idea of sending material out of the area. Like for example, in County Clare, when I came to County Clare, we had various processing plants. We had a chipboard factory, we had sawmills, everything's gone. All the timber's leaving Clare. That's gone other places, hauled away. So the other thing is you can't do a lot of this work unless you can't be hauling material such as a low value product such as straw or rushes, which is the same thing. It's just a different grass. So you need a whole system policy thing. So carbon credits for biochar, but then more joined up thinking. And how you get that joined up thinking, I don't know. I think we're making good strides for that, in fairness. You know, like we had this awful bad situation for several years in previous agri-environmental schemes where one farm was trying to preserve his hedgerows, these wide areas, but then another was ripping them up because we're being penalised for these areas. These very important habitats. And thankfully that was changed this round. So we are making good progress, but it's so critical that we have to even go faster, you know.
Yeah.
So carbon credits is a big one, because as soon as that investors got to roll in, there's people just waiting that side. And there are ad hoc sort of schemes that appearing where carbon credits are given. So that would be the biochar, and then just more joined up thinking.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. In some ways, the carbon credit is so essential. We need that financial backing. That's obvious. But the joined up thinking is challenging, isn't it? And I for me, I feel even conversations like this are, you know, here, like we have Lena from the academic background, we have you leading your work. Like we just have to do it, and time is of the essence. So maybe that's just, I'm learning such a lot, like the way you should even describing this, things are starting to join up in my mind. I think we need to all talk together as much as possible.
Can I just to what Bern's saying, the soil project, the soil strategies that about just started for the local communities, it's led by Dutch university, local small university, and what I've learned from them, they have credits for ecosystem services, which is absolutely, I find it amazing. It's not only for carbon, but for effect on all ecosystem, and that is working. That is government initiative there. So if we kind of blueprinted it here, introduce something like that, that would allow farmers in rural communities to fund a lot of things. Right.
Yeah.
And not even carbon, for ecosystem services.
Yes, and which taps into this point, which is exactly what colleagues have been naming. So you're moving on, Patrick, the same for you. What has been or would be an enabler of this, what you've been proposing your research?
Well, utilising these natural crops and natural products like waste, what would be considered a waste, but it's not a waste, it's a resource like wool, getting them into construction. One of the key challenges is the fact that you've very specific performance standards like fire retardation, fire spread, thermal transfer, moisture regulation. There's all these, there's quite sophisticated testing needs to be done. So if you're a solo innovator, you know, and you're trying to develop a straw board, you could be facing 150, 200,000 euro worth of testing to develop that product and get it certified. So that's quite a barrier. So we either, and this is what we're doing, we either stand back and say, oh, the market will solve it and innovators will, but they don't have, it takes a lot of investment, or we get strategic and we do what the French did, and they said, actually, we need to facilitate hemp as a sector. So we will create like a board deal brand for hemp construction. And anybody that grows hemp, processes it to our standard, gets the stamp and is certified. So they open marketed it, right? And that allowed a whole range of innovators to come in. And then what we're seeing now in the Netherlands, they've decided it's too slow. That's even too slow. We're going to open source it nationally. So we are going to create certification for straw construction that's certified as a national standard by the government, and anybody that produces and manufactures to that meets that standard and is certified. That's going to open up and explode the market. So I think we need to stop this, the market will solve it, let individual promoters bear the brunt, bear the risk, you know, and many of them have, like this company here, you know, they're taking risks, they're making investment, and some of them succeed and some of them fail. Like we've had a lot of hemp construction, bio-based construction startups have failed. So I think we need to think through that issue, that certification issue. And related to that, both in rapidly upscaling with deep energy retrofit and in the promotion of bioconstruction solutions. What we're seeing in Europe, which we need to innovate here, is the concept of market activation teams. So what they're basically, like the one in the Netherlands, they're called Building Balance, but I'm meeting them now regularly. They have basically gone to central government and said, bioconstruction solves water problems. Bioconstruction solves biodiversity issues. Bioconstruction solves housing issues. Bioconstruction creates local employment. Bioconstruction, and they've gone to the Department of Agriculture, Department of Environment, the environment, and they've gone to all those departments and said, if you stop doing what Vernon's talking about, the blinkered approach, right, is that we're going to create an agency, an independent agency. If you fund us for 5 years, we will strategically develop this sector and we will create a 1 to 2 billion euro rural economy. And it will help solve all these policy issues. And all those government departments went, yes, we support it. And they have invested in this market activation team with a 5-year national plan. Now that is what needs to happen. That really needs to happen. If we leave it now, the transitions we're seeing will be very small, very incremental, and we'll be talking about this in another 25 years and we'll have some success. But if we want to really transition to a bioeconomy, we need to get strategic and joined up thinking at a national level. And I think there are 2 great examples that we strategically resolve the certification barrier and we initiate market activation teams for biosector. I'm particularly focused on construction, but it could apply to other things. And we get multi-agency partner buy-in, to see that the bioeconomy solves lots of things at the root tower, and we need all these government agencies to see that. So I would advocate for market activation teams and either solving certification issues regionally or nationally and not leaving it up to, let's say, someone like me. If I want to develop, that's a 10-year project, a huge financial risk, to do that. Whereas if we actually enable that transition, we'll see it happen much quicker. And that's what's happening there across Europe. They're basically saying the transition is too slow. We've got to support it strategically. We're setting up these transition teams.
Wow. Okay. So the market won't solve it on its own.
Not fast enough.
And not fast enough.
Yeah. You look at how long it took for the first PV cell to now become mainstream. That's 100 years.
Oh.
Yeah. We don't have that time. And you look at like the first electric car to now, that's 100 years. So we either let the market solve it and it will do it incrementally and so, but we actually need a rapid transition.
Yes.
So you have to make that decision. How do we facilitate transition at speed?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge.
Okay. Yeah, there's really that feeling of the time. We haven't got the time. We haven't got the time for these slower, older.
Another thing they said, of course, is everybody knows is planning. Like it was the gasification plant was got planning permission in Shannon. Took over 11 years to get that. Who can wait 11 years? Look, they keep funding something like that.
Yes.
That's probably, which, for most projects, that's they're outside the box, so to.
Well, let's. This is actually. There's a pair of questions here, and actually, I think when I get to you, Kevin, I'm actually going to put those together, and then we just come back and just to. It's all start. As soon as we talk about enablers, there's also what are the barriers? So maybe Kevin, for you, what you're doing now, or what you have done, or would like to do, what would really enable it, and also what has been the obstacle? So maybe if you want to do both of those things.
Well, I just have 3 points that I was just thinking of there.
Yeah.
First thing is education, right? So we need to tell the kids that are growing up now why. I'm really speaking from the wool perspective, right? We have the farmers in the country growing wool that's a waste product, but we're importing synthetic at an unbelievable rate, and nobody cares. A couple of years ago we got rid of plastic bags for paper bags. We got rid of plastic straws for paper straws, which are a disaster. You know what I mean? So, but we're not telling people what they're sleeping in. They're sleeping in oil. They're sleeping in plastic.
Oh.
Nobody cares. I was actually at an event with Rebecca this year, and I think it was Rebecca said it to me that there's legislation being brought to the EU at the moment to say that wool has a a bigger carbon footprint than synthetic. So that's what's being pushed through at the moment. Like, so that's what we're dealing with. Like, so we actually need.
You mean a negative story?
A negative story, like they're trying to make out that wool has, and that would destroy, destroy the wool industry. It would destroy the farming industry. So we need to tell people, we need to promote it through education, through the schools, whatever. We also need to make the products price comparable. You know what I mean? If you go into Chadwicks at the moment or any shop, hardware store to buy wool insulation is going to be, pure wool insulation is going to be much dearer than rock wool or whatever. So like if people are doing up a house, you know what I mean, wool insulation is not going to be seen inside the house, so they'll go for their their fancy sitting room as opposed to the wool insulation, while we know wool is 10 times better than the other type of insulation. And the last point I would make is that going forward as a country, public procurement has to involve what we're growing inside the country. So if you take the carpets in government buildings, the carpets in Crow Park, like why isn't the carpet in Crow Park from the Irish farmers? Like, why isn't the carpet in government building from Irish farmers? We're outsourcing this work out to people out foreign. Sorry, there's nothing wrong with out foreign, but we're outsourcing it to companies and countries outside when we have the people in the country growing the fibre, but it's totally ignored. Could you imagine, like, if the IFA was lobbying in government buildings and they were actually standing on
the IFA
is the Irish Farmers Association? If they were up in government and they were standing on the carpet that was produced by their members, we even feel ourselves that we have a traceable program coming through with wool, and we feel that the farmers were part of that story, that people will eventually be lying on their wool. We better trace the wool back to the group of farmers that produced it. You know what I mean? So look, public procurement really needs, and it has happened in New Zealand already. You know what I mean? Where the insulation, it's any government buildings, any grants that have been offered, you have to purchase the wool from New Zealand-based companies that come from New Zealand farms.
And it's funny when you talked about the carbon footprint, I was thinking maybe we should actually be measuring an ecosystem service footprint, like Lena's talking about having that for credits, not just carbon. What you're saying just makes complete sense. And what is I don't know how the government responded when you went to them, as well, just like you're looking at other things like helping with the financial aspect, but what are the obstacles to this happening?
I honestly don't know, because obviously I'm not involved in government, but we're probably so small. Like wool as a textile is 1% of the worldwide fibre. So it's very small, so we don't really have much of a voice. Like the Wool Council was set up in 2 years and we're trying to find our feet at the moment, like, you know what I mean? But there is challenges, like, you know what I mean? And it's voluntary as well. So like we're giving up our own time to be part of the Wool Council, which, you know what I mean, like if you're trying to run your own business and family and stuff, it's not easy. So yeah, looking at, we did speak to MEPs before they went to government, but I feel it to be lost, like, you know what I mean? It's just, it would really need someone maybe just to take the bull by the horns. It probably needs
Take the round.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's because I just feel wool is let's say we produce maybe 4 million kilos of dry wool a year, clean wool, sorry, and like if every person in Ireland purchased 700 grams of wool, we'd use up all the wool that was produced in the country in 1 year. You know what I mean? Then it becomes a supply and demand issue, and then naturally price raises, and then it goes back to the primary producer. But you know what I mean? We'll keep purchasing synthetics as long as, you know what I mean, as we can't compete on price.
Yes. Yeah. For me, you're just the way you tell the story. Like, what if we were standing on the carpets of wool of our own sheep from our land? Of course we should do that. And do we realise? I was even thinking what we're wearing. When you talked about it, it's like if it's made synthetic, it's made of oil. Do we really want that? Yeah. So thanks so much, Kevin. And maybe just to add to what we said before, so back to you, Patrick. Just what would you say is a major obstacle that you've experienced in this in the work that you're proposing, so going ahead?
Well, it's not rocket science. It's completely technically viable. It just needs investment to get to scale, and leaving that to the market and to small private individuals to take that risk is just too much. And it will happen, but it will happen very, very slow. So we need to accelerate.
Okay, great. Thanks, Hunter. What about you, Bernard? What would you?
Yeah, well, I suppose events like this, more educated people don't realise. I think we've lost that connection. We're so well connected, but you got the wool there. It's a perfect example. Like, nobody could have thought the wool would be a waste product. That's the word I hate too, is lots of things as waste. And nature is just something we have found use for. Nature doesn't see waste. You know, like, yeah, and consider it as waste product. But yeah, I think, education, but that's, I mean, you see that it's just so slow. So I suppose it's back to policy and it's education maybe at the higher levels. Maybe it's not to children at all, because my experience has been to deal with children. They're very enthusiastic to take it in, and somehow it gets lost then when you get into university and we go into our own little channels, and that's it. And we don't think outside it. Another thing, like I mentioned to you there, our chat there the other day in the phone, was this sort of thing, this other disconnect. You know, you got these groups, people are working inside, they want to protect environmental stuff, they want to protect their thing, and they don't think of the broader picture. So one of my jobs is we would have planted spruce, and spruce is hated by everybody nowadays, you know, it's a symbol for. But spruce is so important for construction, and it continues to be, and will continue to be important for construction. When it was planted in the wrong place, but now you got this backlash, like you can't dare mention the word now. And then you're looking at people, where's this timber going to come from? For instance, an oak tree will take it maybe 150 years to grow, and that length of time you've got 4 crops of spruce. But there's nobody having a go at wheat fields. There's nobody going, they're equally as bad in their own way. They're monocultures. And in the right place, you know, it's all about being in the right place. And forestry really has addressed that in the last few years. The amount of regulation now is phenomenal. I often say forestry is a canary in the coal mine for agriculture, because a lot of things we were dealing with, particularly with water course setbacks and everything, in forestry years ago are now part of agriculture. But, you know, yeah, everybody's sort of working their own thing. So you got the people who think we're going to stop the spruce planting, but there's consequences. Like, I grow trees, but now we're not planting broadleaf trees as much, because as part of our planting, when we were doing it, we were putting in 20% broadleaf, but they're not being put in now because they have planted. So
it's actually a reduction.
Yeah, so it's a complex issue. I don't know how we can get around this, but it's chats like this, I suppose, to get out and people hear us at policy level. Because, well, I didn't think of that, you know, the next time around meetings, somebody's pushing an agenda to say, hold on a minute, you know.
Yeah, thank you, Bernard. And I think you've always been making this point of the complexity, and I think, so I can hear a buzz and a hum happening. I would like to actually turn to all of us next, because I can hear there's just so much that's been shared. But just you're speaking about the complexity connects to also what you were saying, Ian, about this. We actually need multiple solutions. There's never just going to be one single thing. We don't, and you know that actually makes sense. That's how our nature is. So yeah, just turning to Lena as well. Just anything as a final thing that you're really seeing as a major block or an obstacle to this way of thinking and working.
It's very slow policy first. The same second, if that people say here, very, very slow policy and lack of investment. So for instance, we have hemp as a resource. It's a massive resource. It's for environment, it does so much. As the post-production, it could be used in many different areas. We can use construction, you can use in our ground is for the hemp bags, and we're not the hemp sponges to wash ourselves. The people use hemp clothes and everything. It grows like crazy in Ireland because because of our weather. It shoots up in 3 months, and it's absolutely underutilized resource. But we can't do research on hemp due to government policies. Due to association with the CBD and THC and cannabinoids, okay, even though we're talking industrial hemp. Give us access to industrial hemp, please. The policy still does not allow us to do that. So things like that, plan and permission, let's assess when we take a decision, benefits against potential harm. We tread very, very carefully in our policies, and that creates massive delays. And the second thing is capex. Okay, you don't need capital investment. Every single startup, especially in a circle by economy, would need some level of investment, and many people just do not have the opportunity to do that. So maybe a combination of small funds for the bioeconomy, small companies, and the credits, either carbon or ecosystem credits, as a combination would help a lot to people to start these new initiatives, to companies transition to the new way. So yeah, that's
Makes sense.
first the policies add a little bit of help with the money.
Absolutely, makes sense, and sort of connects back to what Patrick was saying as well. It's just you can't expect an individual on their own to go through all those expenses. This needs to be supported and the policy barriers removed. I feel like this has just been so rich to get to hear all of this, and maybe also if there's anything outstanding that we haven't covered, but what I was thinking of doing was we are going to move into doing some discussion together as a forum, but just before we finish with our colleagues, I wondered if there were, so first, is it okay with all of you if I just turn to colleagues on the floor? Yeah, is there maybe just a couple of questions or remarks just based on what we've just heard that that's coming up for you as you listen to this? Yeah, please.
So what I might ask you to do,
Well, just say, Melissa, we weren't going to use the mics.
just in case people from the floor can't hear anyone who's asking the question.
Yeah, it's just to say that we weren't finding the mics work very well, that's all.
Okay, we'll have to review.
Okay, great.
If you
Brilliant.
want to try them,
I'm going to try it.
if you'd like to just tell us your name and where you're from.
Neil Rowan from Toulouse. Hi. Firstly, can I just make an observation and then can I just ask some questions? I think for everybody as well, I think the bioeconomy is like sustainability is a buzzword, and then it's trying for people to understand practical applications of something that would be affordable, efficient. Like, why would you bother doing it unless you're getting some value back beyond social responsibilities? I think from Aline, Bernard, Patrick, and Kevin, they're wonderful stories. And I think what it is that basically, but it's, in my opinion, it's individual passion and fire in your belly to do something over X number of years, and then you hurdled obstacles and you kept going. And then so basically, if we then look in the context of, let's just say, joining the dots, Ireland is evolving and these should be championed. So basically, there should be some digital presentations of this so people can see practical examples of things that work on the ground. If you look at Denmark and you look at Denmark and other countries as well, they're probably 10 or 15 years ahead of us in all what they're doing, and there's large chunks of the I suppose the budget put towards that. So I think we can learn from them as well from what worked with them, but we don't have the time that they have. So I think that's something that Patrick said as well. So we can do things differently in the context of trying to accelerate the process. I think the demonstrators are a really good idea. I think one thing that we're also looking at is the evolution of demonstrators. So it's someone like a project manager who's enterprise based, who's at the end of the phone and basically can connect people from grant applications. How do you write a grant application? How do I look at policies? So I've been interesting, Bernard, this is to my point, because I might talk again. So how did you manage to hurdle your Enterprise Ireland grant applications? Because it must have been so difficult starting off, because I think that one thing that's now facilitated through the colleges and through education outreach is that the drive to provide more grant writing support for people, just because it's gone very competitive and time. Most people don't have time and they want to see a value back. Carbon credits are interesting, but it's interesting down the line, but it's not a value to people at the moment unless there's some return, because there's change of land use. So it's just, how can we accept,
Should we ask that question to Bernard then?
Yeah.
Great, thanks for your reflections. Do you want to respond, Bernard?
Yeah, the first one was an innovation voucher from I think it's Enterprise Ireland. They're still going. I think they're gone to 10,000 now, which is nice, but small project. But the second one was in European Innovation Project, which is it's funded by EU and administrated here in Ireland, by the Department of Agriculture, and you had to write a proposal. Now, what an innovative part of that proposal was, we first put in our 8-page submission to say what the idea was, and once that was accepted, then the next stage we were actually given money to get somebody to help to produce the proposal. So I would have been obviously heavily involved in that, and somebody else was a number of us at that. So that's how we got to the stage of, because as you said, and particularly in our situation now, put time aside and a risk that you won't get anything, you just can't do it. So yeah, that's a big problem for people in their own business, have an idea, but they need somebody to write up. And I know there are, but in all my cases, I would have had other people help me on those proposals to put with, because I've gone for other ones too. Most recently, doing stuff on trees now in Aspen, which is an Irish tree, and you know, we've got that proposal, and the small one, it was like 8,000, and then horticulture. So time is, when you're working for yourself, it's a big problem, because will I get it? Is it worth it? If you get it, it's great, but if you don't.
I think that's the big thing on it, is actually understand and awareness of the opportunities, but what they're tailored for you. If you're going to an Enterprise Ireland grant, which comes from 5 to 10,000, if you write it efficiently well, you'll get the grant. For example, if I went for ecology and water research, like for a water renovation, I'm looking at last year, 64 applications went in, probably funded 4, and you'd be constantly like, so therefore there's a success rate for some grants that, so you need to look at stage in your development, and you also need to know go or no go when it's worth your buying from your risk perspective.
Yeah,
in terms of investing your time.
I suppose I'd be always looking for niche things, and that's great and bad, because you spend a lot of time. It's like you grow plants, and really grow plants that somebody else is going to have, because you think I'll grow this and nobody else will have it. There's really nobody else has got maybe that's the point. You know, looking at them around the back. But yeah, with a lot of things, I would have, I'd know they were niche. I wouldn't go after the big thing that everybody else is going after. And you sort of run through that whole business thing in your head, like you don't even realize you're doing it, but you're running through the pros and cons. So I'm not going to that. So, you know, I started off with, you went to the area, I don't know the phone, but ecosystem services of the village trees. So that was a small account. That was the first grant I ever got. So it was steps. I'm only saying this for other people might be thinking, I don't know who's out in the audience, you know. They were all little steps, and you got success with that, got that. Then you go to the next one, and the big one then was the EIP one, you know.
So maybe we just be like, thanks so much for your reflection. But just be interesting to hear if there's anyone else. Yeah, gentleman over there.
Yeah, as you're an architect, you could have worked sustainably for a number of years, and I worked with Forum9, and so very has different targets to mine. And I just wanted to ask you about you know, building in the future, and will we be allowed to build concrete in the future in terms of work for net zero as we approach 2050? And I know you've built part of your own house in Henton as well. How far are we away from Agriland approval or certification on use of hemp? Are Engineers Ireland buying into the use of hemp, moving away from concrete, which everyone has short of using, versus engineers, architects signing off on a building that's going to be built from bio-based material? Maybe you comment on that.
Yeah, but in terms of the, let's say, the concrete issue, it's a very high carbon material, and that's a problem for it, because we're seeing legislation in Europe that's going to bring in not just energy performance of buildings, but carbon performance of buildings. So buildings will be not just assessed for their energy assessment operation, will be the whole lifetime, include the materials. So material inventory is going to become part of the compliance aspect of construction. And you can already see from industry, we're getting approaches from industry saying, how do we decarbonize? You know, there are synthetic plastic insulation manufacturers saying, how do we decarbonize? So they see the trajectory. So the cement industry is looking to decarbonize. But of course, the bio-based materials have the advantage. It's not about decarbonizing, they're actually carbon based, so you're carbon negative. And that's a huge advantage, is that they will offer designers an opportunity to introduce materials that either offset for high carbon materials, or they'll begin to design them out. So I think we are seeing a change in mindset, particularly from the European direction, that we will start to design lower carbon buildings, not just energy performing buildings, but carbon performance will become the design matrix, and that will help the bio-based materials sector. But once again, we still have the barrier to transition, and that is primarily around compliance and certification and the investment costs. And there's basically 3 ways we can do this. We could let an innovator like this man take all the risk and innovate and certify his own products. Huge. It's a 10-year project for one, and he's going to need $250 million to do it. And you know, that's a huge long, and that's just to get certificate. He still has to buy a processing plant to process hemp, which is a $2 million investment. So like, it's a massive ask for the market, individuals in the market to do that. Or we go the other way and we strategically do it. And like, there's no reason why we could not have in Ireland a national standard for hemp construction, and that anybody wanting to grow hemp, process hemp, or build with hemp would simply have to meet that standard. If I want to become a block manufacturer tomorrow, I don't need to do one single FAR test or one single test. I just need to manufacture my blocks to the Irish standard for block. That's it. That's why the market is open. That's why you have hundreds of block manufacturers across Ireland. It's easy to get into, and we need to do the same for the bioconstruction materials.
Surely these companies, like I said, Ben, they can build to the future,
Yes.
decarbonise their plants.
They are.
So why are they not jumping on this at the moment? Is there no EIP project around this, or why is there no kind of clever horizon project being developed around this to team up with farmers, get the like innovation partners together to be building these houses and getting the right certification and getting, I suppose, the confidence and the trust from engineers across the country. And is there a lack of confidence, do you think, with engineers?
Yes.
In terms of building with bio-based materials?
Yes, there's no training. So, you know, in the university education system, the design professionals, particularly structural engineers, but all the design professionals, are not adequately trained in bio-based materials. It's not there. So that needs to happen. I'm leading a master's program, and we're introducing those concepts to retrain architects and engineers. But at undergraduate level, it's insufficient. So there's that barrier. But the first signs of the industry rethinking is there. When you see somebody like Kingspan buy a hemp manufacturing processing plant in the Netherlands and buy a bio-based wood fibre board company in Belgium, you see that they're realising the trajectory and they're beginning to change. The challenge is how quickly we will do that change.
So I'm just thinking, maybe
Broaden it out.
this is sort of, it's sparking a lot. Would you mind if we close it there, just on that theme which you've brought in? And what I will say to close that is just that it sounds like this need for awareness raising and familiarity is needed across the board, not just for all of us, but for the concrete manufacturers themselves or the housing constructors. I think what we'll do is, I hope this is sparking questions around, well, why are these obstacles there? What would actually make it happen? What do we need? What would we be asking government for to sort of to prioritise, support this? And that's going to be the final part of our session today to sort of explore that. So with that, I would really love to thank Kevin Dooley, Patrick Daly, Bernard Casey and Lena Madden. Thank you so much for opening up this whole